Good evening, I'm Fana Shea. Here are our top stories for tonight. Thailand and Cambodia militaries hold talks on resuming ceasefire. And Thailand's Anutin Chanvirakul picked as Bumjaitai Party's PM candidate in February polls. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. Thailand and Cambodia officials meet in Thailand's Chhataburi province in a bid to de-escalate fatal border tensions that have severely strained bilateral relations. The meeting was agreed upon during a special meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers in Kuala Lumpur on Monday, following the recent tensions. Phnom Penh initially requested that the meeting be held in Kuala Lumpur, citing safety concerns, but Bangkok insisted that it take place in Thailand. The meeting will be held from today until Friday. Meanwhile, both sides are still reporting fresh clashes as of Wednesday. At least 21 civilians have been killed in Cambodia since the fighting resumed, and more than 500,000 people displaced, according to national authorities. In Thailand, at least 65 people have lost their lives, with over 150,000 evacuated from their homes. As Thailand and Cambodia await the outcome of their latest talks, Ronnie P. Sasmita from the Indonesia Strategic and Economics Action Institution weighs in on the possible scenarios ahead. Now, he also outlines the role ASEAN can play in helping secure a more durable solution to the crisis.
The optimistic achievement, I guess, ceasefire, and the next to design the roadmap to long-lasting peace, I guess. But to get into there, we need task force. That's what ASEAN has not today. So after get the commitment to the ceasefire from both of them, Mr. Anwar should ask them to participate in the task force, special task force on the Thailand and Cambodia peace talk. This task force uh, should endure uh, until unlimited time, I guess, till the end of the conflict. From episodic diplomacy to permanent adjustment, dialogue should not be occasional. It must be continuous, structured, and inclusive of all ASEAN members to dilute bilateral polarization. So ASEAN should facilitate an agreed roadmap. The roadmap with the task force, special task force, with Thailand and Cambodia that define phases of dialogue, technical negotiation, confidence building measure, and benchmark without no deadline, without artificial deadline. So whoever become chairman of ASEAN, no problem, because Thailand and Cambodia conflict will be institutional problem of ASEAN.
With China and the United States involved in mediation efforts, Ronnie argued the issue should remain firmly within ASEAN, warning that major power intervention could risk turning the conflict into a proxy war.
ASEAN must treat the Thailand-Cambodia conflict as a strategic warning. If allowed to drift into the broader Indo-Pacific rivalry or global rivalry, it will risk becoming a proxy conflict shaped by great power alignment. Let's say Thailand closer to security Taiwan closer security tie with the United States, as we know, Cambodia depending strategic dependent on China. We also know already create a geopolitical narrative that external actor could exploit. Once major power become guarantor, sponsor, or implicit backer, local dispute harden and compromise become far more difficult.
Now over to Thailand, caretaker Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul is chosen by the Bumjaitai Party as its prime ministerial candidate for the general election scheduled for 8 February. Addressing party supporters, Anutin says Bumjaitai is ready to return to power and describes the upcoming vote as the most important election in the party's history since its founding in 2008. Earlier this month, Anutin dissolved parliament less than 100 days into his term, after his minority government faced an imminent no confidence vote. He said public expectations of the party were now higher than ever and suggested that, if re elected, key ministers would continue in their current roles. Anutin may benefit from rising nationalist sentiment, driven in part by an escalating border dispute with Cambodia. However, political analysts are forecasting a closely contested election, with no single party expected to secure an outright majority. That's our top news. More coming up after this break.
मैं एक एजेंट हूँ। आपका कोड नेम ही है क्या? टाइगर, लायन, इंटेलिजेंस में काम करते हैं, सर्कस में नहीं। आपके नाम पे एक अरेस्ट वारंट इशू हुआ है। I'm a suspect। कोई बहुत बड़ा गेम चल रहा है, जिसमें किसी बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का हाथ है। बहुत टाइम के बाद मेरी सच में फट रही है।
The Family Man, hanya di Prime Video. Stream kesemuanya dengan Astro.
Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky presents a streamlined 20-point peace proposal aimed at ending the war with Russia. Zelensky says the plan is developed in coordination with the United States and has now been formally submitted to Moscow.
Speaking in Kiev, he said the proposal will be reinforced by future bilateral agreements between Ukraine and the US, covering long-term security guarantees and post-war reconstruction. At the heart of the plan is a formal reaffirmation of Ukraine's sovereignty, alongside a legally binding non-aggression pact with Russia, with the agreement will be monitored by international partners. The proposal also calls for comprehensive security guarantees for Ukraine, backed by the United States, NATO, and European allies. Under the plan, any renewed Russian military action would trigger a coordinated international response, which would include the automatic reinstatement of all global sanctions against Russia. Reconstruction will be supported by a large-scale international effort, including a proposed $200 billion US European investment and grants package. Zelensky said the agreement will be legally binding and overseen by a peace council chaired by Donald Trump, with penalties and sanctions automatically imposed in the event of any violation.
Russia and China have criticized the United States at the United Nations, accusing Washington of applying military and economic pressure on Venezuela during a Security Council meeting. Both countries described these actions as aggressive and intimidating. Venezuela echoed those concerns, accusing Washington of engaging in what it called unprecedented political and economic coercion. The emergency meeting was requested by Venezuela with the backing of Russia and China. The U.S. has recently deployed significant naval forces in the Caribbean and intercepted oil tankers as part of its sanctions enforcement against Venezuela. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations said Washington bore responsibility for the severe and ongoing consequences of what he described as a confrontational foreign policy. China's representative also criticized the U.S. approach, saying that Beijing opposed unilateral actions and bullying, while supporting the right of nations to defend their sovereignty and dignity. In response, the U.S. ambassador told the Security Council that Washington would act decisively to protect regional security, safeguard its borders, and defend the American population. A newly released batch of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein contains multiple references to President Donald Trump, including records of private jet travel and other disputed allegations. The files are released on Tuesday and include previously unseen material from investigations into Epstein, the wealthy financier who dies in jail in 2019.
Earlier releases were heavily redacted, prompting criticism that the Justice Department was delaying publication and withholding material that mentioned Trump. In contrast, Trump appears frequently in the thousands of pages made public this week. However, many of those references originate from media reports rather than from investigators themselves. One document dated January 2020 records prosecutors noting that Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet more often than had previously been known. According to that record, at least one flight reportedly included only Epstein, Trump, and an identified 20-year-old passenger. Some of the references involving Trump remain difficult to verify, including a handwritten letter that Epstein is alleged to have sent from jail.
Venezuela's parliament approves a new law imposing lengthy prison sentences on citizens who support a United States oil tanker blockade. The country already enforces similar legislation targeting individuals who back foreign sanctions against the government of President Nicolas Maduro.
The new law was passed unanimously by the ruling party, which holds an absolute majority in Venezuela's unicameral National Assembly. The legislation was introduced shortly after US forces seized a second oil tanker carrying Venezuelan crude in Caribbean waters. Under the new measures, anyone found to be promoting or supporting oil blockades against Venezuela could face prison sentences of between 15 and 20 years. The law also authorizes financial penalties exceeding $1 million and provides state-backed legal protection for commercial operators affected by sanctions. The move follows a formal declaration by President Donald Trump, who announced a total blockade of sanctioned Venezuelan oil vessels on December 16th.
The Trump administration has imposed visa bans on a former European Union commissioner and several anti-disinformation campaigners, accusing them of pressuring US social media platforms to censor American speech. The move marks a sharp escalation in Washington's campaign against Europe's Digital Services Act, which the US says goes beyond regulation and undermines free speech. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said 5 individuals were targeted for leading efforts to coerce American platforms into censoring or suppressing viewpoints they oppose. He said the action was aimed at what the administration describes as foreign-led censorship targeting U.S. companies and speakers. The visa bans apply to Thierry Breton, France's former European Commissioner for the Internal Market, whom U.S. officials described as a key architect of the EU's Digital Services Act. The law requires large online platforms to police hate speech and disinformation, but Washington says it imposes heavy costs on U.S. tech firms and hinders free speech. The move comes as Washington accuses European leaders of using disinformation rules to suppress political opposition, a claim the European Union has repeatedly denied. In a post on X, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said Paris strongly condemns the restriction imposed on former EU Commissioner Thierry Breton and other European figures. He said the Digital Services Act was democratically adopted and has no extraterritorial reach, adding that it does not apply to the United States. Breton also spoke out against the ban, comparing it to a witch hunt and stressing that the law was backed by all 27 member states of the European Parliament. Breton, who served as European Commissioner for the Internal Market from 2019 to 2024, was a key architect of the EU's Digital Services Act, legislation aimed at curbing illegal content, disinformation, and harmful online practices. That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. More updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Fanashe. Thank you for watching.